The taxi slowed down in front of JFK Airport, and I was already reaching for the door. In my head, I was planning how I'd run through security and catch my flight to Chicago. I just wanted to get home. But before my hand even touched the door handle, I heard a loud click. The doors locked. I froze. The driver, his name was Rafi, turned around so fast. And the look in his eyes, it wasn't normal. His eyes were wide. Scared wide. The kind of wide that makes your stomach drop even before you understand what's wrong. He whispered, "Don't get out here. Trust me. In 5 minutes, you'll understand." His voice was shaking. And listen, taxi drivers in New York do not shake. They've seen everything. But Rafi looked like he'd just seen a ghost. I stared at him. "What are you talking about? We're already late." But he cut me off. "No," he said softly. "Stay down. Please." And before I could ask him anything else, I heard it. Sirens. Not one. Not two. Several. Getting louder. Coming closer. My heart jumped. I sat up straighter, looking around, confused. Then suddenly, 3 NYPD cars flew around us like we were in a movie. They blocked the front, the side, the back, every direction. Tires screeched. Doors slammed open. Officers jumped out with their hands hovering over their guns. People on the sidewalk stopped walking. Some stared. Others ran away like something terrible was about to happen. I felt myself sinking into the back seat, my body folding in on itself. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "What is happening?" I whispered. Rafi didn't answer. He was breathing too fast, like he had been running before he even picked me up. Then he said quietly, "I'm sorry. I didn't want it to get to this." Before I could ask what he meant, one officer pointed straight at our taxi and yelled, "Driver, step out with your hands where we can see them." Another officer moved toward the trunk. A third officer kept looking at the terminal doors, like he expected someone dangerous to rush out at any moment. My hands were sweating so much I almost dropped my phone. For a moment, I told myself this wasn't about me. Maybe they had the wrong car. This is New York. Crazy things happen all the time, right? But then, the closest officer shouted my full name. My exact full legal name. "Ma'am, stay where you are. Do not move." A cold shock ran through my whole body. They weren't here for Rafi. They weren't here for the taxi. They were here for me. I slid down lower in the seat, my breath shaking, my mind spinning. Rafi leaned in and whispered the 6 words that changed everything. "They were tipped off about you." And right there, sirens screaming, police surrounding us, people staring, I understood something terrifying. Someone wanted my life to end at that airport, before I even reached the terminal. If you're still here with me, tell me where you're listening from. I'd love to know how far this story has traveled. Now, back to the story. The moment the officer surrounded the taxi, something inside me shifted, from confusion to a creeping, icy understanding that this wasn't random. This wasn't a mistake. Someone had planned every second of this. Someone who knew my schedule, my habits, my routes. Someone who wanted me stopped before I even got through the airport doors. But none of that made sense as I sat trembling in the back seat of Rafi's taxi, the smell of old leather and pine-scented air freshener filling my lungs. I wasn't a criminal. I wasn't running from anything. I wasn't hiding anything. I was just a woman trying to get to a flight home to Chicago because my mother had called crying at 6 in the morning, saying she needed me. My mom, Anna, never cries. Not even when she lost her job last year. Not even when her landlord in Logan Square raised the rent again. But today her voice broke. So I booked the first flight I could find and ordered a taxi from my apartment in Brooklyn. Nothing unusual. Nothing suspicious. Just a daughter trying to get home. Yet somehow, here I was, treated like a threat. When the officers shouted my name again, I finally looked up at Rafi. He kept glancing at the mirrors, watching not just the police, but the entire airport roadway as if danger could come from any direction. "Why are they here for me?" I whispered. "What did I do?" He swallowed hard. "It's not what you did. It's what someone said you did. His answer didn't comfort me. It made the fear grow into something sharper. Because there was only one person in my life unstable enough, obsessed enough, and angry enough to do something like this. Victor. Even thinking his name made my stomach knot. We broke up 3 weeks ago after a year of living together in a tiny apartment with thin walls, shared laundry machines, and arguments that neighbors definitely heard. In the beginning he had been charming, too charming. The kind of charming that sweeps you up before you realize the wind is blowing in the wrong direction. My friends warned me. My mother warned me. But I thought I knew better. I thought love meant patience. Understanding. Forgiveness. I learned too late that with him, love meant surveillance. Possession. Control. And the more I pulled away, the tighter he grabbed. At first, it was little things. Why didn't you answer? I saw you were online. Why didn't you text back? Why were you talking to your coworker for so long? Then it escalated, showing up at my job. Reading my messages. Following me when he thought I didn't notice. When I finally left, he begged. Then he screamed. Then he threatened. His last voicemail still echoed in my head. If you walk away again, I swear you'll regret it. But there was something else. Something I hadn't wanted to admit until this moment in the taxi with police cars glowing blue and red around us. 2 nights ago, I found scratches on my apartment door. Thin, angry lines right around the lock. As if someone had tried to force it open. I told myself it was nothing, just the old building falling apart again. Now I knew better. While the officer shouted orders, Rafi slowly raised his hands where they could see them. His voice stayed low so only I could hear. I didn't lock the door to scare you, he said. I locked it because when I picked you up, a black sedan pulled out behind us. I've seen that car before. They were tailing us the entire way from Brooklyn. My heart dropped. You're sure? Yes. How do you even know what that looks like? He hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. He wasn't just a taxi driver. Not always. I used to work transportation, he said carefully. Corporate security in Atlanta. You learn patterns. When someone follows you, accelerates with you, slows with you, you don't forget. So you think the car following us is connected to whoever tipped off the police? Yes. I pressed my hand over my mouth. My breathing felt too loud, too fast. It all made sense now. Victor had been calling nonstop since sunrise. He knew I was flying today. He knew my mom needed me. He knew everything. But the one thing he didn't know was that I had taken a taxi instead of the usual rideshare. A tiny detail that might have kept me alive, because instead of stepping out into the airport curb alone, I stepped out surrounded by officers. And that meant Victor's plan was starting to unravel before it even began. Still, one question kept stabbing through my thoughts, refusing to let go. If Victor did all this to stop me from leaving New York, what exactly was he planning to do once I got out of that taxi? The moment the officers ordered Rafi out of the taxi, the world around me sharpened into something cold and unreal. People walked by dragging suitcases, craning their necks to stare at the scene like it was some kind of spectacle. A woman even paused long enough to record on her phone. I wanted to scream at her to stop. I wanted to scream at everyone. But my voice was buried somewhere behind my ribs, trapped by fear. 2 officers approached the window, tapping it with the kind of rigid authority that makes your bones want to disappear. Ma'am, step out slowly. Hands where we can see them. I opened the door with trembling fingers. I lifted my hands. I haven't done anything, I tried to say, but the words barely made it out. One officer nodded, as if he expected me to claim innocence. They always do in the movies, right? But this wasn't a movie. This was me, standing outside JFK Airport with 3 police cars surrounding the taxi I'd taken just to get home to Chicago. Another officer, older, sharp-eyed, held a tablet with a report pulled up. Is your name Marissa Delgado? Hearing my full name again felt like being struck. Yes, I whispered. Then you were reported to us. He flipped the tablet around so I could see. Anonymous tip claimed you're transporting illegal items for an international buyer. The exact items weren't specified. My mouth fell open. Illegal items? International buyer? Me. The officer narrowed his eyes. Do you deny involvement? I almost laughed because the alternative was fainting. I'm a receptionist in Brooklyn. I answer phones and refill the printer paper. I don't even have a passport that isn't expired. He didn't look convinced. Why would he? The report had everything. My full name. Flight number. Departure time. Seat number. Only one person had all of that. Victor. A cold, metallic taste filled my mouth as I realized the depth of his betrayal. He didn't just want to scare me. He didn't just want to ruin my trip. He wanted to ruin me. The officers began searching the taxi. They opened the trunk, the glove compartment, even the small pouch on the back of the passenger seat. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold the pieces of my shaking body together. One officer approached me again. Did you know the driver? No, I said. He just picked me up. That's it. But the officer frowned. He seems to think this wasn't random. He told us someone was following both of you from Brooklyn. My heart thudded painfully. He said that. Yes. I looked over at Rafi, who stood with another officer, trying to explain something with his hands. His face was pale, but not with guilt, with fear. I didn't know him. I didn't owe him anything. But something about the way he stood, the way he kept glancing in my direction, he wasn't afraid for himself. He was afraid for me. And then the coup de grace. Ma'am, the officer said, do you have any enemies? Anyone who might want to harm you or make it look like you're involved in something illegal? I didn't answer immediately. Because answering meant saying Victor's name out loud. And saying it out loud meant admitting that the man I once loved was now orchestrating my destruction. I swallowed hard. There's someone. My ex. His name is Victor Suarez. The officer typed quickly. Reason to believe he'd tip off the police. I felt the burn of shame in my chest. He's been calling nonstop. He's angry I left. And he knew I was flying today. But betrayal is never just one moment. It's the slow build-up that finally snaps. And the snap came when the officer turned the tablet toward me again and scrolled down. At the bottom of the report, under additional details, were the exact words that made my knees nearly buckle. Subject may attempt to flee the country due to emotional instability and violent tendencies. Handle with caution. Violent tendencies. Me. The girl who gets dizzy at the sight of blood. The girl who cries when she sees lost dogs. Victor didn't just want me stopped, he wanted me dangerous. He wanted the police to treat me like a threat. He wanted them to fear me. Because fear leads to mistakes. And mistakes lead to tragedies. The officer continued speaking, but his words were distant, muffled under the roaring realization forming in my mind. Victor had set this up so perfectly that if things escalated even slightly, I could have been shot. Arrested. Handcuffed on the ground in front of strangers and cameras. My life destroyed. All because he couldn't stand the idea of me leaving him. Of me choosing a life without him. I wrapped my arms around myself tighter as the betrayal settled like a cold stone in my stomach. The man who used to cook me breakfast. The man who kissed my forehead every morning. The man who once swore he'd never hurt me. He was now trying to hurt me in a way I might never recover from. And the worst part. He wasn't done yet. Because as the officers discussed taking me inside for questioning, Rafi leaned over to me and whispered, "That black sedan? It's back." Watching us from the upper level, my pulse spiked. The betrayal wasn't just emotional anymore. It was physical. Dangerous. Closing in. And whoever sat in that sedan, they weren't here to watch. They were here to finish what Victor started. The police were still combing through the taxi when an officer jogged toward the group, speaking rapidly into his radio. His urgency rippled through the others like electricity. Something had changed. Something big. I felt it in the way the air suddenly tightened, in the way every officer's posture lifted as if bracing for an incoming wave. Rafi noticed it too. He leaned slightly toward me, voice barely above a breath. They saw the sedan again. Upper level, same car. Same driver. My skin prickled. Why would they circle back? I whispered. His jaw tightened. People who tail someone don't usually make second passes unless they're waiting for the right moment. The right moment. The words sat heavy in my chest. An officer approached us. "Ma'am, we're moving you inside for further questioning. We need you away from the roadway." But the way he said away, it wasn't casual. It was protective, urgent. Like he wasn't just following protocol anymore, he was trying to get me somewhere safer. I followed him toward the terminal doors, flanked by 2 other officers. My legs wobbled with each step. I didn't feel like a suspect anymore. I felt like prey. Inside, crowds of travelers moved in every direction, dragging suitcases, hugging relatives, checking screens. No one knew the scene unfolding just outside. No one knew that someone out there was hunting me like I was a threat that needed to be contained. The officers guided me into a small security room, white walls, humming fluorescent lights, cold metal table. A detective entered moments later, wearing a navy suit and the expression of someone who's seen too much and trusts too little. His badge identified him as Detective Hale. He didn't sit. He stood across from me, arms folded. "Ms. Delgado," he began, "we reviewed the anonymous report. It's detailed. Very detailed. Whoever sent it knows your habits, your schedule, your flight pattern. They even included the name of the hotel you plan to stay at in Chicago." My heart thudded. I didn't even tell my mom the hotel yet. "So who did you tell?" "Just one person." "The wrong person." "My ex. Victor." The detective nodded slowly, as if confirming something he already suspected. "We ran the phone number associated with the anonymous report through our system. It pinged off a tower near Bushwick, close to your residence. The timing matches several missed calls you received this morning." I felt dizzy, the room tilting slightly. "So you're saying it was Victor?" "I'm saying," Hale replied carefully, "he's our primary lead. But there's more. We've received not 1, not 2, but 3 anonymous reports about you within the last 12 hours. My breath caught. T3. Yes. One at 6:13 a.m., one at 9:48 a.m., and the last at 11:02 a.m. Each one escalated in severity. The final one suggested you were a flight risk with violent tendencies. That's why officers approached with caution. My throat tightened at the memory of guns half drawn, eyes sharpened with suspicion. That could have gotten me killed. "That's exactly what concerns us," Hale said. His voice softened. "Sometimes the purpose of a false report is not the arrest, it's the response. Whoever did this wanted you stopped forcefully. Preferably before you left New York." My stomach twisted. "Stopped how?" Hale didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence told me everything. He went on. "We're also analyzing camera footage outside. The black sedan your driver mentioned? It appears in multiple frames. Same make, same stickers on the rear, same partial plate." I swallowed hard. "Then it's watching us." "It was," he corrected. "It drove off as soon as units approached." The word was shouldn't have comforted me, but it did. Slightly. The door cracked open. Rafi stood in the doorway, escorted by an officer but no longer treated as a suspect. He looked uneasy, worried. "Detective," he asked. "You should know, the sedan looped around twice while we were outside. Same guy behind the wheel. I'm telling you, he was waiting for her to step out alone." The detective turned to me with a new level of seriousness. "Ms. Delgado, is there any reason to believe your ex might be close by?" Physically. The question shot through me like lightning. Victor had keys to my old building. He knew the airlines I used. He knew I always rushed and arrived last minute. He knew I preferred window seats. He knew everything. I don't know," I stammered, gripping the edge of the table. "He shouldn't be here. He shouldn't even know my new flight time." But as soon as the words left my mouth, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. Everyone froze. Hale nodded for me to answer. I pulled the phone out with trembling hands. The screen lit up with a single name. Victor calling. My blood turned to ice. Hale leaned in. "Put it on speaker." I tapped the button. At first, nothing. just breathing. Then Victor's voice, low, calm, terrifyingly calm. Marissa, you're not going to Chicago. If you love stories of betrayal, hidden truths, and justice striking when no one expects it, make sure to like this video and subscribe. New stories drop every day, each one darker, sharper, and more unforgettable than the last. Now, back to the story. My entire body locked. You can't just leave, he continued. You think you can disappear from New York like I don't exist. You think people won't notice. Hale-mouthed, where is he? Victor kept speaking. I told you before. If you walk away again, I'll make sure everything around you collapses before you even reach the gate. Something inside me shattered. Not from fear, though it was there, but from clarity. This wasn't a scare tactic anymore. This wasn't manipulation or obsession or anger. This was intent. He had a plan. A target. A timeline. And I was the center of it. For the first time that day, my fear folded into something sharper, something stronger, something that said, I'm not running anymore. Now I fight. Victor's voice crackling through the phone felt like poison leaking into the tiny security room. Detective Hale stiffened beside me, signaling for the nearest officer to start tracing the call. Another officer silently closed the blinds covering the small window, darkening the room as if we were in hiding. Victor, I whispered, forcing my voice to stay steady, what do you want? He let out a soft, chilling laugh. What I've always wanted, Marissa. For you to stop pretending you can live without me. You can't. And I won't let you. Hale-mouthed, keep him talking. I swallowed. You lied to the police. You tried to get me arrested. I tried to protect you, he corrected sharply. From making a mistake. You think Chicago will keep you safe? You think your mother will? She can barely take care of herself, let alone you. The insult hit like a slap. But it also told Hale everything he needed. Victor wasn't trying to scare me away from Chicago. He was trying to isolate me. Victor, I said, voice trembling with a mix of fear and rising anger, leave me alone. He inhaled sharply, offended. You forget I know everything about you. Everything. You can't hide from me. You can't run from me. He paused before adding softly, and you're not alone in that room anymore, are you? Someone's listening. Isn't that right? Hale's eyes widened. He knew. He knew I wasn't alone. He knew I was with police. He knew exactly where I was. Victor, I whispered, how close are you? He chuckled again. Turn around. I froze. Hale grabbed my wrist gently, keeping me seated. No, he warned under his breath. Don't move. Victor continued as if he were reading a script he'd rehearsed for weeks. You think I'd let you get on that flight? You think I'd let you vanish into another state without me? Not happening. You will listen to me, or everything will fall apart in ways you can't imagine. Hale signaled for officers to sweep the hallway. Two rushed out. Victor, Hale said, stepping forward and raising his voice. This is Detective Hale with the NYPD. We have Ms. Delgado safely in custody. Victor cut him off with a low, venomous hiss. She's not safe. Not from me. The phone beeped. He hung up. The room exploded into motion. Officers barking orders. Radios crackling. Hale grabbing my arm. We need to relocate you. Now. My legs shook as I followed him, flanked by officers on each side. My phone vibrated again, this time with a text. Unknown number, I see you. I sucked in a sharp breath. Detective, he's here. We know, he said gravely. We just don't know where yet. We reached a staff-only hallway leading toward the TSA offices behind the security checkpoint. Hale was about to open the next door when an officer sprinted toward us. Detective, we have him on camera. Oversight corridor. Level 2. That was the level right above us. Where the sedan had been circling. Where Victor had already been seen once. Hale turned to me. Stay behind me. Do not break formation. We moved fast, the echo of our steps bouncing off sterile walls. Every sound made me flinch. Then, from around the corner, a figure stepped out. taller than I remembered. Hood pulled low. Hands in pockets. Hale shouted, "Show your hands." The figure froze. Raised both hands slowly. And I gasped, it wasn't Victor. Just a terrified airport worker. "Wrong guy," an officer yelled. We pushed deeper into the corridor. Hale's radio crackled again. "He's moving toward the TSA exit. Might be armed. Repeat, might be armed." Armed. The word punched the air out of my lungs. We reached the stairwell that led to level 2. Officers charged upward. I followed behind Hale, gripping the railing like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. My legs felt like wet sand. When we emerged into the glass-walled upper concourse, I knew immediately we weren't alone. Passengers were scattered along the walkway, but one man stood completely still at the far end, hands behind his back, feet shoulder-width apart, head slightly tilted. Like he was waiting for us. Waiting for me. "Victor," I shouted before I could stop myself. He smiled. A slow, awful curve of the lips that made my skin crawl. "There you are," he said softly, just loud enough to carry. "I was starting to think they were hiding you." Officers surged forward. Hands where we can see them. Victor ignored them. He took one step toward me, and all the air in the walkway shifted. The officers raised their weapons. Hale moved in front of me. "Victor Suarez, stop." He lifted his hands. Finally. But as he did, something metallic glinted in one of them. An officer yelled, "Drop it." For a split second, I thought he was holding a gun. But then I saw the object clearly. Not a weapon. My house key. The spare I lost months ago. He dangled it by the loop. "Remember this?" he asked, voice soft, intimate, horrifyingly familiar. "You shouldn't have moved it from the place I told you to keep it." My stomach turned. He'd been inside my apartment. Recently. "Drop it now." Victor's eyes flicked toward the officers, then back to me. "Marissa, it didn't have to be this way." What happened next unfolded in fast, chaotic fragments. Victor stepped forward. Officers rushed him. Victor jerked his arm as if reaching for something in his jacket. Guns raised, shouts, a scream, a body lunging. But it wasn't mine. It was Rafi. He'd come up the stairs behind us. I hadn't even noticed. He tackled Victor from the side, slamming him into the glass wall with a sickening thud. The key clattered onto the floor. Officers swarmed, grabbing Victor's arms, pinning him down, cuffing him as he screamed my name like a man possessed. "Marissa, you can't leave me. You can't." His voice was cut off as they dragged him away, kicking and thrashing. The entire terminal went silent. I stood there shaking, my breath broken, my mind spinning as the reality sank in. Victor's plan hadn't been to scare me. It hadn't even been to ruin me. It had been to end things on his terms, no matter the cost. And if Rafi hadn't been there, he might have succeeded. The moment Victor disappeared behind the sliding security doors, still screaming my name, still trying to twist his body out of the officer's grip, my legs finally gave out. I sank onto a nearby bench, shaking so hard my teeth clattered. The terminal noise slowly returned, murmured conversations, rolling suitcases, distant announcements echoing through the concourse. But none of it felt real. None of it felt like it belonged to the same world I had woken up in that morning. Detective Hale crouched in front of me. "He's in custody. He won't get near you again." The truth settled in slowly, painfully. I came dangerously close to disappearing under someone else's lies. For the first time since it all began, I let myself cry. Not the quiet, contained kind, but the deep, shaking kind that carries weeks, months, of fear and denial. Hale waited until I could breathe again, then said gently, "We'll file charges for harassment, false reporting, endangerment, and attempted coercion. You'll get a restraining order before the day ends. We're also checking the sedan for prints." I wiped my eyes. He had my spare key. Hale nodded. "We found signs of tampering at your apartment door. He wasn't just watching you, he was entering your space." A cold shiver ran down my spine. If Rafi hadn't insisted I stay inside the taxi. If the officers had panicked. If Victor had reached me before they did. I didn't finish the thought. Some things were better left unimagined. Rafi approached then, rubbing his shoulder where he'd slammed Victor into the glass. "You okay?" he asked softly. I looked at him, this stranger who had gone from taxi driver to unexpected guardian in the span of an hour. "You saved my life," I whispered. He shook his head. "No. I just listened to my instincts." But I knew the truth. Most people ignore their instincts. Most people mind their business. Most people look away. Rafi didn't. He stepped in, twice, before the danger could swallow me whole. An officer brought over my boarding pass, now crinkled from my grip. "Your new flight leaves in an hour," he said. "We'll escort you to the gate." A wave of relief washed over me. Chicago. My mother. A place where I could breathe again. A place where Victor couldn't reach me. As we walked toward the gate, passengers stepped aside, sensing the solemnity of the escort. When we reached the gate entrance, Rafi stopped. "This is as far as I go." I turned to him. "I don't know how to thank you. Just live," he said with a small smile. "Live a life he can't control. That's the real victory." I hugged him. A stranger that morning. A lifeline by afternoon. As I boarded the plane, I looked out the window and saw the city spread below me, chaotic, loud, unpredictable. The place where my nightmare unfolded, and where it ended. My phone buzzed with a final message from Detective Hale. "He's being held without bail. You're safe. Focus on healing." I stared at the message for a long time. Safe. A word I hadn't felt in so long. As the clouds swallowed New York below, I closed my eyes and let the truth settle in. Sometimes the greatest danger comes from someone who claims to love you. And sometimes the greatest protection comes from someone you met less than an hour ago. Fear can trap you. But choosing to walk away, choosing yourself, is what sets you free. For the first time in months, I finally felt like the story of my life belonged to me again. If stories of betrayal and hidden truths keep you thinking long after they end, click the story showing on your screen now.